The Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Christiana Adeyeye, raised the alarm. Her life and those of NAFDAC operatives enforcing the seizure of illicit, adulterated and expired drugs were being threatened by those involved in this spread of death in Nigeria's health sector. NAFDAC operators, with the support of security operators, had closed 3 open markets where these drugs are stored and from where they are distributed across the country. Onitsha Bridgehead, Aba, and Lagos were the 3 guilty markets. Many Nigerians point to Kano as the next necessary port of call.
The operation is an outcome of the strategic partnerships that NAFDAC has made and which is part of the National Action Plan 2.0. During this exercise, NAFDAC succeeded in removing from circulation 87 truckloads of banned, expired, unregistered, suspected falsified substandard medical products from the 3 markets. Right now, we have screened over 7,000 shops, and it's still ongoing as of today. A database of these shops and the offenses committed has been created for further steps. More than 40 arrests have been made, which will be followed by prosecution. With the signing into law, the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, for forfeiture of assets, the assets recovered from suspects will be treated as proceeds of crime after their conviction by the courts.
The challenge of fake, illicit, adulterated or expired drugs is a global challenge. Better organized societies have dealt with it by sanctioning countries where these drugs are manufactured and exported. Drugs are also made across the counter commodities to be imported, distributed and sold by non-professionals. In Nigeria, however, drugs are imported, distributed and sold like any other article of trade by anybody who has the money or space to display them.
There are agencies that are responsible. NAFDAC is responsible for the product. Why the pharmacy council, that's why they're working in collaboration. We, the pharmacists, are being regulated by the Pharmacy Council of Nigeria, that's PCN. When it comes to the product, NAFDAC is responsible for regulating the product.
We have the patent medicine store, that's the PPMV, that is being regulated by the Pharmacy Council, and those ones are only licensed to sell non-ethical drugs. The ones enforcement will go periodically to inspect their premises to ensure that they are licensed to sell only whatever that that is OTC. And then for the pharmacy, there's a logo. That's why we advise the general public that whatever premises you go to, there's a neon sign with a pharmacy logo. And whichever premises you go to and you don't see that neon sign there, that premises is not licensed by the Pharmacy Council. And we have our annually we are being licensed. The license covers us for 1 year, and they are so strict that at the end of the month, the second month of the year, if you're not ready, if you've not gone for the renewal of your annual license, there are sanctions. You pay a fine.
Look at it from the chain supply. Who are the people that are involved in the chain supply? From the manufacturer to the distributor, to the retailers, and then to the healthcare providers, to ensure that the drugs that are being administered to patients are genuine drugs, they are not expired drugs. You have instances where drugs have expired, and what do we see that some of the people involved, I would not want to be mentioning names, some of the people who are involved in this chain line, what they do is they will just change the package, change the dates, to make it look as if the lifespan of that drug is still valid.
The current effort to tackle Nigeria's fake drugs scourge will not be the first effort. It will also not be the first time Onitsha Bridgehead and Lagos markets will be closed on account of fake medicines. In 2007, on March 6th, when Professor Odora Akonyili was the Director General of NAFDAC, the market was shut down on account of same fake drug challenge, and she only escaped assassination by a hair's breadth.
I ate, I walked NAFDAC. It was my life.
Yes. We can turn around any institution, any agency, any ministry if we are determined to do that. If we are determined to shun money, if we are determined to face the consequences of swimming against the tide, because it is swimming against the tide, there are consequences. There will be verbal attacks and there may be physical attacks. Everything boils down to corruption. And corruption is not just about giving or taking money.
Fake drug is such a bad news. It is mass murder. Early 2001, over 41% of drugs in circulation were outrightly fake. Over 68 were unregistered. So we were in a crisis situation. It was not only drug, what of food? Yes. What of baby milk, infant formula that was cassava flour with sugar and a little milk. Professor, can you imagine how many babies that died? When I came into NAFDAC, first of all, I wanted to succeed. I think that should be number one in any assignment. If you tell yourself you want to succeed, every other thing will follow. But if you are focused on succeeding and shun people's money, irrespective of God, it's not just money that is involved in corruption. When people are your relations, you should not start looking at people as my brothers or sisters or friends. You should be moving like a train in anti-corruption movement, especially in the area of counterfeit medicine.
The issue, the business of fake drugs is a big business. We're all here when Dora Akonyili, as the DG of NAFDAC, when she was fighting the menace of counterfeit drugs, we saw all the threats that she went through. They almost killed her driver, and all of that. So for people who are confident to come up and say that these people, there are people here who are involved in adulterated or fake drugs, we need to provide some form of protection for them so that they and their families are not exposed to threats, to dangers to their lives from people who are the ones peddling these drugs.
As the current effort unfolds, a socio-political group, Southern Nigerian People's Mandate, has weighed into the matter. In a statement signed by East President Augustine Chukundum and Secretary General Shegun Dia, the group pointed at Pakistan, China, India, and some other Asian countries as the sources of these fake drugs that have become a scourge in Nigeria.
Corruption is also part of what we are passing through, what the menace that is responsible for Nigeria being a dumping ground or any drug. And again, the economy of the country is another way. That's why you see a lot of drug. People want cheap drug, and most of these drugs that are being brought in, when you want to talk about the counterfeit and at the same time the fake drug, what is it? What is the definition of it? It's a drug that they are deliberately and fraudulently mislabeled. You understand, either in terms of their composition, of what the drug is contained, or at the same time mislabeling, misrepresentation.
The group said that NAFDAC itself should be the first agency that must be investigated in any meaningful effort to resolve the fake drugs challenge. According to the Southern People's Mandate, NAFDAC is running with the hare and hunting with the hound because NAFDAC officials give a seal of approval for the importation of these drugs and turn around to impound them. The group called on the president to investigate the customs, police, and the NDLEA, all of whose officers are at the entry port, get compromised by the drug dealers while the illicit and fake drugs take the lives of many Nigerians and frustrate medical practice in the country.
In order for us to curb this menace, because it is a menace and it has a global approach, it has a local approach. So the first and foremost thing that I think that we should do, increase our awareness campaign, so that people will know how to identify fake drugs when drugs are being distributed to them. Then we also need to engage a multi-sectoral approach in terms of Federal Ministry of Health, the Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, all of those people that are involved. The customs is also a stakeholder. Because like most of the drugs that we take in Nigeria, they are imported. And if they are imported, it means that they come in through our borders. And who are the people manning our borders? They are men and women of Nigerian Customs Service. So we also need to engage them so that when these drugs are seen, of course, they have to go through a training process for them to be able to identify which is counterfeit, which is adulterated, which is illegal, which one has expired. So with that training in mind, when these drugs come in, they will be able to identify that, oh, these ones they have already expired, these are counterfeit, these are banned drugs. They can seize them and then destroy them or burn them like we see them do on national television. So all of this, we have to do all of this. It's going to be a collaborative effort.
The agency actually responsible for that are doing, and we know the clampdown that NAFDAC is ongoing now. The essence is they are working in collaboration with the Pharmacy Council of Nigeria to streamline, have a central stock, you understand, have to clamp down on the open market and ensure that you want to get your product, you have a central regulation of drugs coming into the country. It still has to go through NAFDAC. Yes, they are the one that issue license. They check the integrity of the drug. They even have a lab where they carry out, you understand, check on the drug, carry out some tests on the products that is being brought in. And this track and trace method, that will I say technique that is out there, also is another process. There was a time where you have numbers being given, a code that if you log in such numbers onto your phone, it authenticates the authenticity of a particular product. And I think NAFDAC is also still working in that regard.
Meanwhile, pharmacists have suggested that the demand by the NAFDAC DG, Professor Mojisola Christiana Adeyeye, for the National Assembly to amend the anti-narcotics and drug law to include either death or life sentence. The Director General of NAFDAC has suggested a stiffer law as a deterrent to the continued challenge of fake drugs in the country, while speaking to the media at the presidential villa.
We use this opportunity to call on the National Assembly to expedite the amendment of the NAFDAC Act N1-LFN 2004 and the Counterfeit and Fake Drugs and Unwholesome Processed Food C-34 Act to include life sentence and death penalty in the penalties for crimes committed under these acts. This exercise that we are doing is purely an enforcement operation to protect the public and rid our country of falsified and substandard medical products.
Senate had proposed a bill in 2020 to increase the jail term for people who are convicted to life imprisonment. I think if we're able to pass that bill, it will be good, because anyone who is convicted knows that he or she is going to prison for life. And then I think the fine that was being proposed in that proposed bill is 2 billion. I think it makes more sense, even though I still think that 2 billion cannot buy the life of any human being. So if we're able to get that bill passed, whoever is convicted goes behind the bar for his or her entire life. When we get more convictions and we talk about this, we make publicity, we ensure that these convictions are publicized such that everybody sees, everybody knows. I think it will serve as deterrent to people who are sitting down or who are lying in wait or who are in that business. They will know that it is no longer business as usual. And I think that this will help a great deal to curb the menace of counterfeit and fake drug adulteration of drug proliferation of drugs in Nigeria.
It is evident that the challenge of fake, illicit, and adulterated drugs in Nigeria reflect the challenge of corruption, weak and incompetent regulation, and a lack of political will to tackle the problem. If not, Nigeria should have put diplomatic pressure on countries from where these drugs are imported and sanctioned the leadership of customs, police, and NDLEA, who run after consignment of drugs on the roads after they have been led through the entry points. As the war on fake drugs, the innocent whose businesses and livelihoods are now suffering should not be sacrificed because of the failures of regulation and border control.
360 Nigeria, tracking issues in the polity.